Hi there. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Ryan Vanderhei, and I've learned some of my most valuable life lessons from my favorite TV shows and movies. Sure, these works of art entertain us, offer us an escape, and even tap into our emotions. But there's one E that's often overlooked.
And that's educational. If viewed from a different perspective, these stories and their characters can help us to learn and develop as human beings. I'm your co-host, Joe Parente, and it's our mission with this podcast to share these unique perspectives with you so that you can grow from the show.
The topic of today's discussion, the movie Memento.
Right on.
And more specifically, the significance of memory in humans. As always, there are going to be spoilers ahead, so please proceed with caution. And be sure to leave a like, rating, or review wherever it is that you listen, as it really helps the show. Shall we begin?
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
So, Joe,
So, Ryan.
today we're going to be discussing the 2000 film, Christopher Nolan's second feature, nominated for 2 Oscars and number 57 on IMDb's top 250 movies of all time. That's all. That's Memento. And I wanted to just ask you something that I thought of when I was watching. If you suddenly stopped making new memories, what would you want your last one to be?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know what it would be specifically, but I would want it to... Oh, that sounds so cheesy. I want it to be happy.
The polar opposite of our lead character.
Yeah,
Leonard.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Do you have one in mind? Like, did something come to you when you were watching it?
Again, it would be super cheesy. It would be like, oh, I was with my family,
Yeah.
and friends or whatever at a party maybe. Like, and everyone was happy and we were all interacting with each other. Like that,
Right.
of course, would be like what you would hope your
Right.
final...
I mean, because, like, you just paid an online bill. You know, I don't know. You know,
Right.
checked your bank account on. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe like graduation day from college. That day was special. I had like,
Right
you know,
on.
my parents are separated, divorced, so I like had them all there together for like the
Okay.
first time in a long time, and it's one of my favorite memories. I don't know why it is, but
Okay.
when I was in the, they're doing the ceremony and stuff, and they have like a section where they like recognize people who, graduated with honors. And so they asked the people to stand up, and I graduated with honors, so I stood up, and then I looked to my left, and I could see my dad in the crowd, and he just gave me like one of these, like, you know how guys are. He just gave me like,
Yeah.
like one.
Yeah.
I think it's forever one of my favorite memories, man. So I think
Oh,
probably
that's a good one.
that was just such a good day overall. Everyone was there. Everyone was happy. We were all in good spirits. So
Well, then you spark my memory, almost like having a Polaroid picture
Here we go.
in my pocket.
I love it.
I just had a rather, one of those round number birthdays. I'd rather not say.
20,
80.
obviously.
Thanks, man. I was going to say 80. And it was phenomenal. And so it was very much like that. Man, if I could have that as my last memory, thank you for bringing that, sparking
Absolutely,
my
yeah.
memory on that one.
It's a good way to segue into talking about the film and what we're going to discuss today in memory, because I don't know if there's anything more tragic that could be someone's final new memory. Obviously, our character Leonard in this film, he gets, you see him knock his head, and that causes whatever memory loss that he has. So he can't create any new memories. He can remember who he was all the way up until that point, but he can't create any new memories beyond that. And that last memory is his wife being, raped and murdered, suffocated to death, and walking in and fighting these guys, and then boom, smacks his head, and that's it. So that I figured, well, this is going to be a long discussion about some pretty tragic stuff. So
Yeah. Okay.
let's start it off light there with some good happy vibes. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently today.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the significance of memory in humans as it relates to our character Leonard and as it relates to us. And I'm going to do this in 4 parts.
Okay, then.
So we're going to break this down, and we're going to discuss each of them and how it relates to Leonard and us. So the first part will be evolutionary significance of memory. The second part will be intuition and instinct when memory fails. The third part will be memory as our enemy. And the fourth part will be memory is all we have in the end.
I like it.
So let's start off with part number 1, shall we?
Let's do it.
Memory is essential to survival. That's why we adapted and developed it through evolution. We evolved to create memories because there's a survival need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Throw you an example. Obviously, this is way back when. If you were on the plains and you encounter a lion, and that lion kills one of your tribe members, it'd be pretty good to have a way to know
Yes.
that maybe next time I see a lion, I should get the hell out of there.
Very true. That
I
would
should
be
get out of Dodge.
beneficial. Yeah.
Another similar example would be you're pillaging around for food. One of your buddies eats a mushroom,
Right. The wrong kind of mushroom.
or wrong kind of mushroom. He dies.
Right.
You're gonna want to remember.
Yes, you
The
will.
concept of memory is so foreign, but in that context. But you're gonna want to remember.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, if the mushroom looks like that, don't eat it.
True for all species on the planet.
Sure,
That kind of memory.
So
Yeah,
we see how essential it is to our survival.
absolutely.
And then we meet Leonard, who can't form new memories, as we discussed. So everyone who he comes in contact with, who finds this out about him, takes advantage of it and uses it for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, that's the Teddy, who is the bad, quote unquote, sour cop,
Mm-hmm.
who is kind of using him to do his dirty work and making a profit off of it, essentially. Then we've got the guy at the motel,
Yeah.
who says, "Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
My boss
this
said,
is one of your
this
rooms.
is one of
Right.
them." My boss said that I told him about your condition. He said I should rent 2 rooms, and he's like, "How many rooms do I have in this place?" He's like, "Well, 2 for now."
Right.
So you see, even such a
Yep.
bystander, innocent bystander, as the guy who runs the motel is going to use it against him. And then Natalie, who uses it to kind of do her bidding. Like,
Absolutely.
I've
do
got
her
some
bidding.
problems and some issues,
Yeah.
and you'll take care of it.
We could also go into human nature, but we're not going to touch on that one,
Yeah.
are we? Because
Because
they jumped all over his.
how bizarre
Condition.
is the scene where she comes in
Yes.
and she's all beat up, and she said, "Dodd beat the crap out of me," and
Yep.
this is Dodd did it, and then he feels some sort of way.
Right.
And what was brilliant about it is when we first initially come to that scene, we see him trying to frantically write down what happened, so
Right.
he remembers,
Right. And can do something about it for her.
and he doesn't get it in time before she comes to
Yep.
the door, and then he forgot.
Because she stole all the pens.
Right, and when she first initially comes in, we
Right.
see her kind of take all the pens and put them in the bag.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that he
So
could not
she-
record it. Yep.
And because she didn't get her way the first time.
Correct.
So then, because she first came in and was lying initially about, what had happened. And then when they have a little bit of an argument and tussle, if you will, she says some unsavory things about us.
Boy, didn't she?
Why
What salty
is
language
that?
that was. My goodness.
Because she knew she could get a reaction out of him. And oh man, that's such a gut wrenching scene, because she's like looking him in the eyes and saying, "You won't remember any of this, you idiot.
Right.
Like we'll
Yeah.
be best friends right after this."
Yeah.
And so she then proceeds to come back inside. She literally just goes out to the car, sits in it,
Yep.
and then
And
comes
waits.
back in.
Yeah.
And she's like, Dodd beat the crap out of me. It
Yeah.
was Dodd. And then he's like, I'll go pay him a visit,
Yeah.
because he doesn't know.
Yeah.
He's only got what's there. So I just thought, man, how essential is memory to us surviving? Without it, every single person who he came across
Mm-hmm.
that understood it took advantage of him and
Yes, they
manipulated
did.
him.
Yes, they did.
And he's lucky. I mean, things could have gone much differently for him, but that's where it begins, right? That's where we kind of sort of lay the landscape for why memory exists in the first place and why it's essential to us. And that's going to lead us into part 2.
Okay.
And that's intuition and instinct when memory fails. And this is a specific scene that I wanted to discuss, and that's when him and Teddy are in the diner. Leonard, played by Guy Pearce, and Teddy, who I don't...
Joe
Pantoliano, are in the diner, kind of a quarter of the way through the movie, maybe. And he says, he's discussing are you still after this John G guy, and et cetera, et cetera. And then Leonard says to Teddy, memory can change the shape of a room. It can change the color of a car. Memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation. They're not a record. And they're irrelevant if you have the facts. He goes on to talk about eyewitness testimony.
That's right.
How it's unreliable
That's right.
in court.
Yep.
So what he's saying there to Teddy is that I can't really rely on my own mind. That's why I have these tattoos. That's why I have my Post-it notes. That's why I tell everyone about Sammy Jenkins.
Right.
To try and help people understand why I am doing what I'm doing and why I'm acting this way. And really his entire drive throughout the film is fueled by his quest to kill John G. Is fueled by this idea that there was a second man there when his wife was murdered.
That's right.
When his wife was murdered, he says that there was a second person there.
And the police said there wasn't.
The police said there wasn't. They've got all they need.
Right.
The person is dead that, likely did it, so we don't need to pursue anything else.
Right.
And I think it's Teddy that asks him, how do you know? And he says, I just know. Sometimes there's things that you just know. And this is kind of where intuition and instinct come into play, where memory kind of fails you, where memories are fuzzy and you're not really sure. And like he said and perfectly laid it out there, they're distorted. It's kind of just an interpretation of a moment. You can't really rely on them fully. And so he's saying, listen, I don't know how to tell you. I just know that there was another person there. I feel it. Do you have those kinds of feelings? Do you have gut feelings? Do you have instinct or intuition, like something that you can't explain, but you just feel it?
All the time.
Yeah.
What I don't know, I'd have to think about how it counters my memories. I was given some good advice a long time ago that anytime your gut speaks, pay attention. And I've really seen throughout the years that when I don't pay attention, I actually pay a price for it.
Okay.
And so I also think the gut and intuition are two different things. But
wait, don't breeze past that. What do you explain?
I think intuition can come from your head, and it can come from experience, and it can help you connect dots almost in a way that's more quick than you could subarticulate it to yourself.
Okay.
So you would just like have a feeling where something's going
based on your previous experiences.
Based on your experience
the things
on
that
the planet.
The pieces you've put together.
Correct.
Okay. You can kind of see part of the puzzle.
A gut thing is like, should I go out tonight? That's not going to be intuition. That's something different. I have a feeling about it.
Okay.
And I can't quite explain it, but I just know that something's telling me, better if I just stay home.
And you can't really articulate why.
And that is, I can't articulate why, but that gut feeling to me is one that I pay attention to.
Interesting. I like the way that you laid that out there. Yeah, because there is a difference.
Don't
Intuition is kind of like guided by experience. And instinct can be sometimes as well. Again, based on things you've seen, things you've experienced in your life, you've seen other people experience.
Exactly.
And see. It might be able to lead you to a little bit of a feeling about where things might go.
Right. Whereas a gut feeling might really surprise you. and like not make sense to your head.
Yeah.
Like it's counter logical.
That
Whereas to me, intuition is usually quite logical.
okay. Yeah, I like the way you laid that out. That makes sense to me.
Right on.
A gut feeling is something that arises out of the moment. Like you can't explain it. And it just-
Exactly.
yeah, there's been so many times in my life I think where, I can only speak for myself here. I can't speak for anybody else, but my gut's really never led me wrong.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
At any
Which is
time
impressive.
that I just can't explain why. I don't know, man. I just know. We talked about on a, well, no, that I don't think that's related. Sorry. So I was
okay.
going to talk about the Jimmy Kimmel 9/11 thing, but that was fate. That was different.
Correct.
It's not like he
That
was
was
like,
fate.
it's not like he got a bad feeling and didn't get on the flight. He just overslept.
Something came right.
So totally separate. But
Same idea.
I think
though.
there's been
Yeah.
similar scenarios in
Yeah.
a lot of situations where people are just like, I'm not going to go to that thing that we
Yeah.
were invited to. I don't know why. I
Yep.
just have a feeling, and I'm just not going to go. And then something bad happens, and they're like, oh,
And to me, that's gut.
where do you think that's coming from?
I think that's a big question.
That's a sort of a
'Cause
deeper.
It is. Because then,
conversation.
yeah, because that starts to get into like, I don't know, existential or esoteric or what have you. Because
Metaphysical, yeah.
yeah, because I look, I think there's a lot more than just meets the eye in life. And so to me, the gut is connected to that something that doesn't just meet the eye. And that's why I think it's something that, well, we've both seen that if we don't pay attention to it, that you can pay a price. Yeah, I just don't think it's of what you see, feel, hear, taste. I think it's something different.
I read a book, and I'm struggling to figure out the name of it, but the author's Gavin Becker, I want to say, and he wrote a book about fear and about how it's useful to us
Massively useful.
as a tool.
Absolutely.
To me, I have such a logical brain that I don't think there is more than meets the eye. I think that I'll offer an example.
Okay.
There was a lot of like deja vu. Let's talk about deja vu for a second. Growing up, there's been a lot of questions about where it's coming from, what is it, what's happening, and things like that. And I was always so interested in it. I even like thought about writing scripts about maybe deja vu. You're changing universes or whatever. You're seeing a glimpse into another universe. There's been so much talk out there. And then I read an article in a medical journal 2 years ago, maybe, and don't quote me on the exacts, but they actually did research and studies that found that it's just a process happens when a new memory is formed and when you're recalling an old memory. There are two different processes in the brain,
Okay.
and deja vu is just your brain made a hiccup. It
And it's-
mistook the feeling of a new memory for an old
one.
So that's all that's happening. There's a logical, scientific explanation for what's happening there.
That makes sense.
And I think that the gut feeling that we get could be similar. Yes, we don't yet have knowledge of what that is, or at least I have not done the research. But I think maybe one day we'll find out where that's coming from, if that's sort of an evolution, just like memory, if that's sort of an evolutionary adaptation that we're gaining over time as a species in order to help us, like fear. Like we developed that over time as a survival instinct to help us avoid The Gift of Fear, or Fear Less by Gavin Becker.
Got it.
Sorry, that's the title of the book. And really, really fascinating about how he talks about fear and how it's there to help you.
Which makes complete sense.
So it's nothing to be afraid of. No pun
Correct.
intended.
No.
So
Agreed.
sorry, we're getting far away here, but
I know. I like
to
it,
come
though.
back to
I like
this.
going in the weeds.
Leonard's entire purpose, life purpose now, we can say that his life purpose has been reframed since the incident, since the accident where his wife was murdered and raped, and since his injury that led him to not be able to form new memories. His entire life's purpose now is framed off of instinct and intuition and a broken memory. Because again, he's asked, how do you know? How do you know there was another guy? You got knocked out and you're brain damage, and now you have this condition. How do you know? How can you know? I just know. There are certain things that you just know. Have you ever made, and this might be too broad here, have you ever made a big decision in your life based purely off of either a gut feeling, intuition?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Moved to London on a gut feeling.
Really? Explain. Tell me more.
I was just about to graduate from undergrad.
Okay.
And my girlfriend at the time had gotten accepted to the London School of Economics. And she's like, I'm going. And it was a really challenging decision.
For you or for her?
For her, it was a slam dunk.
She was
For me, it was not.
Yeah.
It was going into the great unknown.
Sure.
And she was going to go, and have student loans, and her life would be paid for. I was going to have to go there and get a job, which I did.
Yeah.
And I cannot logically explain that. I just had an absolute knowing that I had to go.
Yeah.
And it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
It was actually it kind of similar actually to when I decided to get into acting. That scared the hell out of me. Logically, nothing supported that.
Wow.
It was a gut feeling.
Something just told you to do it.
Just got to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of me tried to talk me out of both of those things.
The logical part of your brain.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that I didn't. I'm glad I didn't go with that.
Sure.
I'm glad I went with my gut. I think I've purposely forgotten the things where I didn't listen to my gut.
Because
there's because on some level I just
I knew. Back time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew.
Agreed. Yeah. When I moved out to LA.
Okay. So
it was that. It was crazy, and everybody was telling me it was crazy, and I didn't have enough money, and I don't know why. I was just like, I just have to go. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm going.
That defied logic.
I just feel it. It
Yeah.
defied all logic. Trust me, man.
Yeah.
I got here and was tapped out, man. By the time I had an apartment, I had $0.
I
It was
hear
like,
ya.
all right, well,
I've been there. Yeah.
I've got to just, but it got me here. And that was all that mattered to me. I was like, I just need to get there. And I can't explain why, but that's just where I just feel it in my gut.
Yeah.
That's just where I need to, and thank God I did.
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
It worked out the way that it did.
Yeah.
But that's happened time and time again in my life.
And yeah, that kind of knowing I think is fascinating. What I get frustrated when my gut's quiet.
Oh,
because there are times when I'd love to be able to conjure up that. It's like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
And gut's quiet.
Yeah.
It might be like quietly chuckling at me,
right?
Watching me squirm.
Right. You're not going to help me out here,
yeah,
man.
Exactly. This is really not the time to be quiet.
Right.
But I really rely on that quite a bit.
Me too. And in all of the conversations I've had with people specifically about that, usually they're like, yeah, it's always right.
Isn't it?
It's never led me wrong.
Which is bizarre because memories can be wrong. And
exactly
what our main character was pointing out, I just thought that is so true. Oh, let me give you an example of like London, my place in London.
Mm-hmm.
I thought my building looked a particular way, and I had that in my head. And when I went back years later, it's like, what? I really had a clear picture in my head that I completely conjured up.
Yeah.
It was not real. I remember how that shook me. It's like, wow.
Just off
I'd so convinced myself.
So you didn't have a photo of it or anything?
No, but I
Just
walked around the back of my building. It was over
long?
200 years old, and it was the stretch of time was
Yeah.
about 6 years.
Okay, so 6 years in between, and
Yeah,
you had a
5,
memory
6
in your
years.
head of like,
Yeah.
this is what the building looked
Yeah.
like, and then when you
Yeah.
went back, you were like, oh man,
Exactly.
wow, that's fascinating. It's kind of the similar to, and then we'll come back because I'm getting off track
Okay.
here, but there's I believe it's called infantile amnesia, which is you cannot form memories prior to around your third birthday. The brain's not developed enough yet. And so any memory you think you have prior is one that your brain has tried to put there to fill the spaces based on stories you've heard, photos you've seen of yourself, a home video maybe. You think you have a memory of prior to being 3 years old, but your brain literally cannot form those memories yet. It's not developed enough. I believe it's called infantile amnesia.
I don't have a study to counter that. And I don't remember. I remember my third birthday. So I don't remember things.
Maybe that's when it turned on. Maybe that's when the switch was.
For your third birthday, you'll now have
New memory
capability.
I don't remember why it was 3, but obviously it could be different for everyone. Every person, every human being is different. But it was around that time because people will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember looking at my mom in the crib and you're like, logically, that's impossible. That cannot happen.
Wow.
If you think that, it's just because stories people have told, photos you've seen, home videos, whatever. You're filling those gaps.
Have you never spoken with someone who has memories before then?
I don't know that I have. I think maybe at a time or two.
And I guess you're not one of them, from what you're saying.
Absolutely not. I don't remember anything before like 7 or 8.
Oh, wow.
I don't have. My memory is very shaky for that young.
Fascinating.
And again, it might be the memories I do have. It might be because there's photos of me or home. My mom was a big home video person, so I have tons and tons of home videos of me. So maybe that's where my brain
interesting
is kind of filling those gaps. But again, it's kind of similar to like if you sometimes people have a night out and they drink too much and they black out. You might kind of have like hazy, I think I went there. That's the last thing I remember was being at the bar, and then
yeah.
And you might try to like fill the gaps.
Sure.
Your friend might say, "No, dude, we went to the pizza joint and we had the cheese pizza."
But that can bring it back.
Right. It could trigger I
do remember that. I do remember that.
You're like, oh, yeah. I do remember that.
But somebody went, "You remember when you were 6 months old?" And you're like, no,
absolutely not.
That is not conjuring a thing.
Your brain just isn't
interesting
developed enough to do that. So anyway, we got off track there. Let's come back to this.
Okay.
But before we get into part 3, memory as our enemy, why don't we do a bad guy break?
Let's do that.
Why don't we do that? And I'm going to hide this from you.
Yeah.
So that way you can look at
straight ahead.
So as always, when we do our bad guy break, I'm going to give you 4 hints to guess the popular fictional antagonist that is related to memory, let's say, and bad memories and not being able to forget them. Let's just say that's my hint for you.
All right. I'll still probably get this wrong.
So the year, the genre, the setting, and the actor. Let's see if... Last one you got right, and you surprised me with... What was it?
That's
Wicked Witch of the West?
Yeah.
I don't know how you pulled that out.
Yeah, that's just because I'm old.
I said 1939 is the year, and you looked at me like I was crazy.
Sure.
So we're going a little bit into the future here. So the year is 2001. That's the year that this film came out, 2001. The genre is fantasy adventure.
Okay.
The setting is 1990s England. 1990s England. And the actor is Ralph Fiennes. I'm giving you 5, 4,
makes me look like such
3,
an adult.
2, 1. Lord Voldemort.
Oh, wow.
From Harry Potter. So this is obviously the first time. Obviously the books were prior. But the first movie, this Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, came out in 2001.
He so didn't look like Ralph Fiennes. Sometimes I forget that was him.
Ralph
Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes. Okay, yeah. I think I said it wrong.
That's okay.
Ralph Fiennes.
Because he was so noseless.
Yeah, they chopped his nose off, so you can't really recognize. But
totally forget that's him. He's brilliant.
That's when I first fell in love with him as an actor. Was that?
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was young I was 6 when that came out. But he plays Lord Voldemort, Tom Riddle. Tom Riddle's painful memories of growing up in an orphanage and without his mother because she died contributed to his fear of mortality, which led him to want to achieve immortality.
Got it.
Which is why he becomes interested. If you see the later movies, obviously spoilers galore, but you kind of see into the past where he sort of started to have a inkling towards dark magic and Horcruxes, which will allow you to split the soul, if you will, or the body, the being, into different, so you can survive. So even if the physical body dies, you can still survive in different objects or beings.
Okay.
So he takes an interest in that early on because he's got these painful memories of growing up without a mother, growing up in the orphanage, and, you know, his mother dying. And so that leads him to kind of have a fear of dying. And so that's how kind of his villain arc begins.
Right.
So he takes an interest in wanting to achieve immortality, which, by the way, fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great backstory.
Yeah,
for
it is.
a villain.
It is. It's a really good backstory.
It's a really good backstory.
Yeah.
So you're batting what?
Stop.
120 maybe?
Maybe
That's okay.
120. Jeez.
We'll get you with the next one.
I hope to stump you with mine.
You're hard to guess here because I don't know.
Yeah.
First, you're getting 1939, Wizard of Oz.
Well,
but then, have you seen the
year
Harry
after
Potter
I was
movies?
born? Yeah, but again, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I didn't read the books.
Yeah, I mean either.
Yeah,
But I've heard they probably offer more insight
I would
into
think.
his background and things.
Just like Lord of the Rings and
Right. So let's get to part 3,
Let's
memory as our enemy. So, how can memory be an enemy to us? When we experience a traumatic event, our brain remembers usually every little detail of that event and then recalls that traumatic memory anytime we might be in a position to experience it again. And again, that's a survival instinct, obviously. It's be kind of like if you witnessed a traumatic event, where you saw your friend get eaten by a lion. Anytime you're near a lion, palms are going to sweat, your heart's going to start racing because you're recalling that memory and that trauma. It's a trauma response that gets developed. And so Leonard he has vivid images, and it's his last memory, as we've said, of his wife, opening the bathroom door and she's there suffocating, and then there's the guy there. So he keeps seeing flashes of it. He can't escape it, basically. It follows him everywhere he goes. And there's a beautiful moment when he's in bed with Natalie, and he's kind of upright in bed and he's staying awake, and she's, she later opens her eyes, but she's laying on his chest, and he says, "How am I supposed to heal if I can't feel time?"
That's right.
So he's kind of stuck. He doesn't have the ability to move on because he just keeps hitting a reset button where imagine your most recent memory is walking in on that. How torturous is that, if that's a word, to have that be the thing that replays every single it seems like his memory is extremely short,
except for one of the last scenes. Yes.
Right. So every couple of minutes,
it looks like about 2 or 3 minutes.
every 2 or 3 minutes, boom,
Reset.
wife getting raped and
Right.
murdered, boom.
Right. And that's
Imagine what he must feel, what he's going through, how he's sort of living with that. I mean, most people probably would not choose to continue to survive, and maybe the only reason he is because of revenge or vengeance.
Yeah, right, because the man who, when he was the insurance investigator, and the man he was investigating didn't have that kind of purpose.
Correct.
And so he felt that was a differentiator for him because he had a burning purpose. I just got to say that first time I saw it, which was when it came out, and watching it again this morning, I squirmed so hard at that. I squirmed so hard at the reset and
Yeah.
having to orient yourself and who are the people that are right in front of me, and
Right.
people want things from me and they're coming at me fast, and I've got to be quick on my feet. And he's also got to trust that he has kept good notes and that he has given himself decent orientation so that when he forgets everything in a couple minutes, he can reorient himself quickly.
Right.
I just kept thinking the whole time, he's handling this so well.
Yeah, he's really composed.
He's really composed, which really, I think that was part of his just makeup as a character, which helped him. And he also said he was very organized, which he knew helped him.
Right, sure.
I just can't, it made me exceptionally uncomfortable, really trying to get into his shoes.
And I think that's Christopher Nolan did such an exceptional job of how he wrote and shot this out of sequence with the nonlinear sort of storytelling, because it really makes us kind of feel what he's going through. It's very disorienting the way it's cut.
Incredibly, until you figure out the black and white versus the color and how they're being told.
Right.
You know, it was the first time I saw it. It took me more than halfway through the movie to figure that out.
Yeah. Did you see there's a clip of him explaining how he did it?
I've never seen that. No.
He's at like a whiteboard and he draws like a half circle or like a hairpin.
Okay.
And then he goes, so here we're black and white, we're moving forward in time.
Yep.
And then here we're in color and we're moving backwards in time. And they meet at the same moment. And then he cuts in between. He just goes back and forth and cut here, 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 until you finally meet in the middle. What a brilliant idea.
It is a brilliant idea.
A story like this is why that kind of storytelling exists, why that technique, the nonlinear storytelling, exists, because this subject matter, we're following a character who can't remember the last, anything that happened. So we're kind of put into his, we're forward, we're back, now we're back in time, now we're forward in time, now we're, it's so sort of disorienting.
Right. Right. So we as the viewer we are continuously disoriented just as
and we don't
Leonard
know
is.
what's going to happen.
No, we do not.
We know how it's going to end.
We do know how it's going to end.
But which was also such a cool, because like when you first watch, I remember watching the movie for the first time and going, man, I've just seen the end of I know how it ends.
So
what is
should I leave?
Now?
Right.
But then as it starts to unravel, you kind of see like more and more and more. And I loved the detail of like the crossed out stuff on the Polaroids, because you're going, what did he cross out?
Yep.
What was there?
Right.
And you slowly kind of start to peel away the layers. So well done.
Brilliant storytelling, to make that compelling.
So to get back to the story and how memory is an enemy to us, Leonard, at a certain point in the film, pays an escort to reenact the evening that his wife was murdered. At first, I thought when I saw it, maybe he could be doing this to try to unlock more about the memory.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
I later kind of felt that I think he's doing it to relive and feel that feeling again. That's his last sort of memory of her, when he wakes up and he feels the side of the bed and it's cold because she's not there. That's kind of his last tangible representation of his wife. And so he's doing this to feel that again, because as soon as he opens the door, he says, okay, you can leave now. Because again, he doesn't know. So he's thinking this is real. So he's sort of tricking himself and allowing himself to have a little bit of,
that must have been
to live
bizarre.
in a fantasy.
That must have been bizarre though, because he didn't remember that he set that up. And he's reliving his last memory. I would be upset with myself.
It's real, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
at one point,
he's living it again.
That's why Guy Pearce does such an incredible job. As soon as he opens the door and he sees the woman, she's like doing coke or something.
Right. Yes, that's exactly what she was doing.
And the disappointment that washes over, and he's like, "You can leave now."
Yeah. He realizes I'm still in my nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
But just for that second, it's kind of bittersweet. Just for those few moments when he woke up, she was still alive, and he still had her. And when he opened that door, he was going to see her. So I thought that, and maybe I could be wrong, but he just wanted to kind of feel that again, allow himself to have that moment and kind of reconnect.
I think that was one of those scenes in the movie, one of actually few, it was not really open. It was open to interpretation, excuse me, because that one didn't have some kind of logical place with him solving this mystery.
Right. It wasn't a step
It
in
was
the
not.
process. Yeah.
It was not. It was just for him personally.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think I wondered if he thought it was possible to kickstart his memory. What you're saying is that's a really beautiful explanation.
I hope it's true.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's kind of sweet
Yeah,
that he would want to
it is.
kind of have that again, and we see that too with he burns a bag of his wife's things, like he sets them up around the room when he's got the book, he's got the hairbrush, and he kind of sets it up around the room to kind of make him sort of feel that way again. But he burns it, and throughout the movie we're hearing kind of his thoughts, his inner dialogue, and as he's doing it, it's so sad because he says, "I've probably done this before," as he's burning the bag of her stuff. And you just, you just get, your heart just sinks for this. Not only did you have to live through this experience, which by all means is 1 in a million, and horrible and tragic, and no one should have to experience something like this, to have the person that you love most ripped away from you in that way. And then it's his last memory that he can form, and then he can't move on. Like he says, how am I supposed to move on without time? How am I supposed to heal without time? So he's stuck.
Well, unless he, right after, at the beginning of the movie, right after he shoots, what's his name in the head? Teddy.
Yeah.
Right then take out a pen and say, "I've done it.
Yeah.
I killed him.
Yeah.
It's done." But we don't know that he did that.
Correct. And to your point, if he does do that, what's his purpose now? How do you survive in this world?
That is what makes the whole premise and ending remarkably disconcerting to me, because I thought, well, his purpose is done, and now what kind of quality of life can you have? Because we saw the man who had the condition that he was investigating, is the insurance dude, the insurance investigator, and just sitting in a home.
Yeah. Rotting away.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where I got confused. He's discussing, but by the way, I love that story too. What a bizarre way to sort of set that up, and when we learn out later what happened. But Sammy Jenkins is a CPA, certified public accountant, and we see him at work, and she visits him at work.
She visits him. Who's she?
Sorry, his wife. Sammy Jenkins' wife.
Okay.
Comes and visits him, right?
Keep going. Oh, come in. Yes, exactly. She did.
Am I wrong in remembering that?
No, she did. You're right. Yeah.
So he's still being an accountant, even though he has this memory thing?
Wait, you're saying the wife of Sammy came and visited him, the guy with the condition, at work.
Right. Am I wrong?
Oh, I was thinking she visited Leonard at work.
I know she visited Leonard at work because she tells him that she's distraught and she doesn't know what to do. And she asks him,
I don't remember.
Do you think he's pretending?
Right, exactly. I don't remember, which doesn't mean it didn't happen, which doesn't mean it's not in the movie. I don't trust my memory.
Maybe somebody can...
do you trust your memory?
I'm not sure I do in this scenario.
I feel like do you remember what happened? This is funny because here we are talking about memory. It's like, what happened in the movie? What happened?
I just watched it too.
Me too. That's funny.
I don't know why I remember.
Do you remember the context? Or she saw him at work? How could he be working?
That's what I mean.
I don't think he could.
Now.
I think you created a false memory. Oh, that's fascinating.
Maybe I did.
That's
the whole point of this. So,
oh man.
But when we find out that Sammy, she gave him the ultimate test.
Yeah.
Sammy Jenkins' wife gave him the ultimate test. So Sammy Jenkins is, quote unquote, he's investigated by Leonard when he was before the accident for insurance, if he's capable of getting a payout for his condition.
Because is it a physiological condition, or is it a psychological condition?
Correct.
You'll get
And
a
then-
payout if it's physiological.
Yes.
You won't get a payout if it's psychological.
And then Leonard comes to the conclusion that it's not. It's purely mental. And that's when she comes to him. Do you think he's faking it? And then the ultimate test is, here, give me my insulin. And then I'm going to ask you again afterwards. And then I'm going to ask you again.
And it's going to kill me if you
And then she
fail this test
I think
or
she,
pass
and he
this
says
test.
it too, that she couldn't live
Correct.
like that anymore.
Yeah.
With him as a vegetable.
Yeah.
And in with the thought of maybe he's not being truthful. Maybe this isn't, he's faking what's happening.
And also, he's not going to remember doing it.
Right, exactly.
So it isn't really cruel. It is cruel for the 3 minutes that he is with her before his memory resets.
Right.
Or,
He finds her cold and pale, and
right. And, things would have to happen.
but he doesn't know he did it.
But let's say the next day he won't know.
Right,
what
he won't
happened.
even remember that he...
But he will remember that he had a wife.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So it's not going to be just completely blissful because they were married way before he got his condition.
True.
Oh, purgatory.
True. What a great juxtaposition, man. I love the Sammy Jenkins line. Like, that whole story.
Yeah.
I love that.
Did it make
Love
you want to
that
get a
actor.
Sammy Jenkins tattoo?
Remember Sammy Jenkins? God, what the bizarre tattoos, man.
No kidding.
So fun,
I
but
was thinking, did they do that every day in makeup? Anyway,
right, exactly. So I was thinking about this and how it applies to my own life. And I think that I'm somebody I get so affected by negative memories. I get so affected by traumatic experiences. Like, I latch on, and my brain, it could be something so small, but if I have a negative experience, a traumatic experience, quote, I latch on to this, and I find it hard to move on. I find it hard to, and that's how memory is my enemy. Memory is stabbing me in the back, man.
Right.
Like, I want to be able to move on. I want to be able to move on past it, but I can't.
Can't or won't?
Feels like I can't. I can, but it certainly feels that way. The trauma is so strong that it's overriding my desire to overcome it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Well, what's happening? It's getting your attention.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't that make you feel that you're not your memory then?
Maybe.
Because you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I
sure.
mean? Because
Sure.
it is getting your attention. It's almost
Sure.
like it's knocking. Hey, Ryan, remember this?
Sure.
Check this out.
Exactly. Because again, like the lion experience, like example, so one of the things that I'm dealing with currently, I'm struggling with currently now,
Okay.
is flying.
Oh, interesting.
I flew a bunch growing up. My parents split. My dad moved, so I
Okay.
flew all the time, 2-3 times a year. I don't know if that's considered all the time, but
When you're-
I was
when you're young?
I was a seasoned
Yeah.
flyer.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed flying. In my early 20s, I developed this anxiety and panic disorder, and I have a panic attack on a flight.
Did you really?
And I remember getting off the plane and going, I'll never fly again. I'll never put myself through what I just went through ever again. And I haven't flown in 8 years.
Well, you made yourself a promise and you're keeping it.
Exactly. And now that memory, my last memory of flying is that one. You know what I mean? I don't have in therapy, you go through what's called exposure therapy for
Okay.
fears. So they'll try to slowly expose you so that you're with positive experiences, so that way you replace the negative experience. So right now, as it stands, my recent memory of being on an airplane is having a panic attack. So now anytime I'm near an airport, anytime I schedule a flight, anytime I'm
Ooh.
getting to the flight, I get this overwhelming flood of that memory replaying at 1,000 miles an hour, and the sweating and the
it's in your
heart
body,
and
man.
this.
Yeah.
It just takes over. My memory is my enemy. It's not helping me. So that's just one of the ways how I kind of related to Leonard in that way. He can't move past this. He can't move past this traumatic experience, this memory he has. And in that way, I'm trying actively to overcome this fear that I've developed out of a traumatic experience I had.
Could I throw out there a Buddhist perspective on fear?
I love it.
So,
Do you want to give people context as to why you're about to give me a Buddhist perspective?
it's something I've come across
Okay.
in my life.
Okay.
Was exposure to this particular. You could look at it as a thought experiment if you want.
Yeah.
That fear is it's its own entity.
Mm.
It's not in you. It's not of you.
Mm.
Find fear in you.
Mm.
Okay?
Mhm.
And when you are faced with a particular situation, like a tiger, that kind of thing, and it's running after you,
Yeah.
fear comes in and it gets your adrenaline flowing. It
Yeah.
gets your heart pounding.
Yeah.
It gives you the fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tripping over my tongue, which is helpful, which is beneficial. And this is where you were alluding earlier to fear being helpful.
Yeah.
But fear cannot stay.
Right.
It's impossible for fear to stay with you.
Yeah.
What remains is neurosis.
Mm. Yeah.
It's not the fear itself.
Right. Fear is a response.
It is a response and then it's over.
Yeah.
But it leaves a very strong memory.
It's a residue. Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw that out there
No, I
because
appreciate
if
that, yeah.
if it sometimes it can be helpful to look at it as something that happened and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's not that I am reliving fear. You're not. Fear is not there anymore.
Yeah.
It's gone.
You're reliving the memory.
It's just the memory.
It's just the memory.
And that to me in certain circumstances in my life helps it be a little smaller.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
That's a good perspective. I like that. That's kind of sort of about what the book, the Gavin Becker book I mentioned, is about, because he kind of lays out a lot of scenarios throughout his clinical work where he's met people who have, fear is able to help them. It's a tool there. Again, we've developed evolutionarily, just like
Right.
memory, to help us when you see that tiger. You
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
the extra
You do.
blood pumping and the adrenaline.
You
and,
do. Somebody's following you on the street at night.
You need that to
You know?
to become
Get
more
out of there.
alert,
Yes.
to become more focused,
Because
and
it
be able
heightens
to,
everything.
to
Yeah.
escape and to survive.
That's
It's
right.
essentially just a survival mechanism.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. To take yourself out of the equation.
Exactly.
I like that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
So why don't we go to part 4,
Let's do it.
where it all comes to a head, where
Ooh,
it all
love
ends.
that. Yeah.
And that's that memory is all we have in the end. On our deathbeds, memory is the only thing we have left. Running through our mind, we've heard the age-old saying, right? Like, your life flashes before your eyes. It's all we have left of people. Once people go, we can't conjure them up, or maybe we have a photo or a video of this person. But all we have is a memory of them, of what they were when they were alive. And the last time we spoke to them. This movie ends with a really great sequence where we see Leonard driving away from Teddy after he just
Mm-hmm. Took
murdered
care of business.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so he says in the car, and I quote, "I have to believe in a world outside of my own mind. I have to believe that my actions still have meaning, even if I can't remember them. I have to believe that when my eyes are closed, the world is still there."
And he tests that.
Do I believe the world is still there? Is it still out there? Yeah. We all need mirrors to remind ourselves of who we are. I'm no different.
Yeah.
Man, what a line.
Yeah. That was
I
awesome.
remember the first time I heard that, I was like, what the hell did you just say? And the pause and like rewind. It's like, man, dropping some wisdom there.
Yeah.
We all need mirrors to remind ourselves of who we are. I am no different. So it's kind of a bittersweet sort of ending. We know what's going to happen next. He's going to obviously go and throughout the rest of his journey and kill Teddy as his Janji. But him saying that, him having that kind of moment of clarity in the car, his one little glimpse of clarity in the car before he inevitably opens his eyes and tattoo shop, and then that's how the movie ends.
Right.
That's the last final frame. But in the end, that's really all you have is your memories. What else is there? When you're on your deathbed and you're remembering your life, it's just memories.
I can't speak from experience, but
Sure,
but it makes a
me
lot
either.
of sense.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where also that's for people who have their faculties too. Because not everyone passes away in that particular condition.
Sure, you might not have that.
And you also might pass away in your sleep.
Yeah.
And you're not even cognizant of having beautiful memories before
Right.
One of the best death scenes I've ever seen, I don't know if this is going to be completely out of context, Kill Bill.
Okay.
She does
I haven't seen Kill Bill, so I don't.
Come on.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Wow. I know. It's one of those ones, it's like
Not one or two.
not one or two.
We
It's
need
high
to
on
take
my
care of
list.
that.
Yeah.
We need to take care of that. Then I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how he. Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
Okay.
Okay. Then
But-
okay.
But
People out
they-
there know
they-
what I'm talking about.
yeah, exactly. If you've seen it, you know
Yeah.
what he's saying. They say that, or they've observed that the part of the brain that's most active when someone is dying is the memory, which I forget where it's at. If it's in the hypothalamus or
I don't know that right off the
I
top
don't
of
know
my
it
head.
off the top of my head either.
Yeah.
But that area of the brain is the most active when you die. So I think that's where that came from. That saying of
My life flashed
my life,
before me.
my whole life flashed. You know, anytime you're in like a near-death experience, you're like, oh, my whole life flashed before my eyes.
I think people who have survived, they
Have
say
said
that.
that,
That's-
yeah.
that it's true,
They remember everything they
Yeah.
saw their entire. What?
which is fascinating.
It's fascinating. What benefit would that have? Is it just your brain's last effort of survival? Of like, let me just remember just before I
It's
go.
such a big
Just
question.
hold on to something.
We might have to do another video.
Yeah.
Such a
long
big question
one, yeah.
because it's actually, to me, it's a beautiful thing to have that kind of review. And I wish I would love to have that without having to put myself, on the edge, of
Sure.
of perishing.
Sure.
Because I think it would be such a fascinating thing. Like, did all the emotions go with it?
Right.
All those highs, all those lows, great things you did, not so great things you did.
Right.
Fascinating.
Right. Exactly.
And hopefully it would point to, this was a good ride.
Absolutely. Sure.
One would hope.
Yeah. Agreed.
So were a lot of these things pointing at memory is what gives us identity kind of thing?
No, but that's a great way to put it. Memory is what gives us identity. He says there that we all need a mirror sometimes to remind ourselves of who we are.
Even though I said I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think there's a really strong element to that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, we remember who we are about how we interact with people and our memories that we have with them.
Because I don't know how much time.
Things that we've done.
One of the other things he talks about is because he has no short-term memories, he has no conditioning,
Correct.
which is
The things that we take for granted.
fascinating.
Yeah. There's also, before we go, there's that great scene where he's in the diner with Natalie. Where's he at with Natalie when he says, oh, he's in her house, and he knocks on he says, I know what this is going to sound like.
Yes.
I know what this is going to feel like.
Right.
This is the memory we take for granted. The stuff that
Yes.
what this laptop's going to feel like when I touch it. I don't have to touch it to know.
Right.
That's the things that we sort of take for granted. But we're running out of time, so let's do our top 5 recommendations.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh man.
So
Could have kept going.
these are the top. If you loved Memento, did you love Memento?
I really enjoyed it, but it made me so uncomfortable, and it
It has that effect.
yeah.
Watching it this time, I was like, this is This is up there for me on
It's
my
great
one of my favorite
storytelling.
movies.
It's great storytelling.
If you loved Memento and you want to see 5 more movies like it, these are the top 5 recommendations. Shutter Island, 2010 Scorsese flick starring DiCaprio as a U.S. Marshal. He's investigating
so
the
good.
disappearance of a woman from a psychiatric hospital on an island. You can watch it on Pluto. Mulholland Drive, the 2001 David Lynch film about a woman suffering from amnesia after a car wreck and her search for clues that unravel the truth. And you can rent that now. The Game, the 1997 movie, David Fincher, I believe, starring Michael Douglas, about a wealthy banker who participates in a mysterious game that starts intertwining with his own life. You can rent that now. And Old Boy, the 2003 Park Chan-wook film about a man who, after being kidnapped for 15 years, must use his memory to track down his kidnapper. You can watch it on Netflix. And Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I knew that was coming.
The 2004 film starring Jim Carrey about a couple erasing each other from their minds after their relationship goes sour. And you can watch that on Netflix.
But they couldn't.
Do it. So if you liked it, watch those. So to wrap things up here, I think this movie really teaches us about the role that memory plays in our life, how important it is, how we developed it as a survival technique, and if we don't have it, we won't be able to navigate our world successfully.
And we take it for granted.
And we completely take it for granted.
Yeah.
And how those memories can affect us so deeply, so strongly, keep us from doing things, keep us from moving on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very powerful tool.
Very true.
So thank you for joining us today. That's it. As remember, as always, you're the main character of your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.